what I'm finding really interesting is that it's HR that is being left to lead the charge of this change management with GenAI through organizations. Mm-hmm. So actually HR are our best friends, really. They are the change leaders within the organizations.
Hello and welcome to the Plumm Pod, where we talk about all things HR and mental health. I'm your host, Georgia, and founder of Access HR. On today's episode, I'm joined by Mary Kemp, and we talk about how to build a high-performance culture using AI. Mary's experience and insight has seriously opened my eyes, and I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. Mary, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Georgia. It's lovely to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast.
No problem at all. I get to sit in a comfy chair and look at you.
What a better start to the day. So on today's episode, we are going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about culture in terms of building high-performance culture with AI. This is going to be such an exciting conversation. And before we get into it, I would love if we could talk more about you and your background so that our listeners can get a really good understanding if they don't know you already. So a question that I like to ask every single guest is, was HR part of the plan, or did this happen by chance?
Well, probably almost even a better question, was AI part of the plan, and did that happen by chance? So no, we've been working with large organizations and often with their HR teams. And what we're finding now, so kind of accidental but kind of not, is that what I'm finding really interesting is that it's HR that is being left to lead the charge of this change management with GenAI through organizations. Mm-hmm. So actually HR are our best friends, really. They are the change leaders within the organizations. We realized that really quickly when we first started. We would speak to other parts of teams, and it wasn't a right fit. So actually it's landing on HR's desk. And we love working with them because actually our big thing in the AI world is that it's human first. Mm-hmm. And that's what HR is. I mean, that's the H, isn't it? So that's kind of how we ended up. But my career journey has been quite an interesting one. I think bizarrely started life as a nurse in New Zealand. Went traveling. You're meant to go back, and I haven't gone back yet. And then started kind of moving into the sales and marketing world. And that's where I've been for the last 20 years with our own company, working with larger organizations in the States on business development and strategy. And then I think we were lucky. We saw quite early what was coming, mm-hmm. and we decided we could wait and be disrupted, or we could lean in and investigate it and work with other organizations doing the same thing. And so that's what we did. We pivoted just over a year ago, and have been pedaling fast ever since.
I like how you said pedaling fast because it's forever changing with AI. Can we break this down a little? How would you explain GenAI?
So I would explain GenAI as not tech. Mm-hmm. I really want people to say, this is not like, and now I'm going to use the word tech, this is not like any tech advance we've ever had before. Yep. Usually it's the grandma that would go to the grandson to program their iPhone and all of that kind of thing. You have to have some knowledge. This is not that. This is tipped over now. It's generative AI. It works on language. So all you need is curiosity and the skill of engaging with it. It can't do anything without you. It needs a human in the loop, and it all depends on how you engage and use it. So I just want everyone to know that it's all about curiosity and mindset, and that we've all been signed up to this great AI experiment. We can't opt out. It is going to touch every area of our lives. And actually, end of last year, it was designated as a GPT, just to be confusing, which stands for General Purpose Technology. The first one in human history was fire. The last one was the internet. And it means that it will touch every area of human existence.
You just said then that we still need a we still need humans in the loop.
Yes.
Which I think feels like a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Do you ever face people being quite nervous?
Well, 100%. And actually, we've mapped out that AI adoption pathway because it is about mindset. So step one is indifference. Like, it's done an interesting poem for Christmas, but I really don't see how it applies to my role. And then we'll move on to fear, which is it's coming for me. What does this mean for me? I have no idea what to make for that. And I'm worried and I'm not going to look at it at all. And then you'll move on to embarrassment, which is where people feel like they're cheating. I was speaking to somebody, chief marketing officer, and we did, the organization did some training with her, and she used it to create a go-to-market strategy. And she was like, but do I, because it took me half a day when it would have normally taken me a week, and it's good. She's like, do I own up to the fact that I used chat to do this? How do I feel about it? I feel like I'm cheating. So there's that kind of to go through. And then they'll get to confidence and transformation where they're able to use it happily within their role. And it's just for people to realize to be kind to themselves, because they'll go through that again when they're using it in a new area that they're not comfortable with, or when they try it and maybe it doesn't work properly. It's not linear. They can go backwards and forwards between it. And that's absolutely fine. I want them to be comfortably uncomfortable.
And that's also when we learn in the same space. Point number 3 really resonates, that embarrassment. And I think also when we're at work and when we're utilizing AI, that can be a piece sometimes where we're like, oh, do I say that I'm using it? Am I going to get any type of response from that? When really it actually allows us to be more efficient in how we're working. I'm curious to understand from your perspective how we can adopt AI for high performance within a working environment.
So it's a great question, and I could probably be here for about an hour talking through the first layer of it. I think, up until now, humans have really been task machines. That's what we've been doing. We've been little robots going away and doing tasks. And for most people, they spend about 80% of their time doing the stuff that they don't love to get the 20% that doesn't feel like work and is their unique ability, and they can lean into it. They can do it all day. And with AI, what we want to do is turn that around. So actually 80% of their time, they're doing their highest value work, which is where that high performing team comes in. And 20% of the time is the remedial, more, that doesn't need their experience or their skill set to lean into. So we're actually freeing them to do their highest value work, which is where high performance lives anyway. So it naturally opens the door to that to be done almost automatically rather than crowbarring it in and trying, because we're now going to give them time back. So my kind of thing is that AI used properly, and I'm talking Gen AI, actually allows us to be more human and allows us to work at a higher level. We see it happen in organizations, actually. They're able to be, so it's not always about doing more either. It's about that innovation, that creativity, that strategy. It frees people up, gives them back space, thinking space to do the more exciting stuff, actually, that we want to do.
I find as well, AI offers context and people offer connection.
Nice.
And sometimes there is that fear of, am I going to be replaced by AI? Whereas in my opinion, you're going to be replaced by the people who are using AI.
Yeah.
And one of the main posts from your LinkedIn that actually really captured my attention was around AI is not a tool, it's a skill.
Yeah.
And I love that. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
100%. Around that. And there's a few reasons for that. One is that the AI landscape is changing constantly. So there's no point in being an expert in a tool because we don't know if tomorrow the tool is going to change. And actually engaging with these large language models, Gen AI, is all about the skill. And the only way you learn is by doing. And actually it's kind of meta because it will help you learn. But it's about diving in and being curious so you understand where the edges are and you understand where it can help you and most importantly, where not to use it. So we talk about being AI first. So when you're about to do a task, sit and talk to your large language model. I'm going to use chat as a placeholder. Talk to chat and say, I'm about to do X. How might you help me do this faster, differently, or better? just so that you're learning.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think everyone I speak to, is an area expert in what they do, and they're used to having the answers. And actually, it's a paradigm shift. They now need to ask the right questions. It's not about having the answers. They need to ask the questions and lead it with their experience.
That is such a good point, because also using chat, I have now started to think more about the questions that I'm asking to extract the information, and the quality of the response is so much better than I was getting before. If anybody isn't using any form of AI at the moment, do you have any recommendations of how they can get started?
Yep. So I would recommend, so chat is great at the moment. It generally is the model that most organizations will use within their security and data, because it has the best functionality today. If you're listening to this, it may not be tomorrow. So I'd recommend downloading the app on your phone and having it on your, and logging in online as well, and synchronize the two, and then play. So sometimes it can be easier to play with it in your personal life, just so that there's, you're not worried about how it might impact your work. So it's a safe place to play. So simple stuff. You can open up the app on your phone, take a picture of your fridge and tell it you're tired, give you a recipe to make in 10 minutes, and it will look at what's in your fridge and make a recipe. Or silly, those kind of silly things that there's nothing to lose. So play. I would encourage people to play. Go back to being a child and just be totally curious and see if you can break it. You can't, but play with it and just see, because that's how we learn. So learn through experience. And then you can play with it at work as you feel more comfortable.
That's also really comforting to hear as well, your recommendation of just playing with it. Yes, we've already spoken about people being fearful, but I do think that also comes back into the workplace and thinking, okay, how can I take advantage of what I've got accessible to me to work more efficiently, to be high performing? But what does that look like in a business context? Are there any... I think when I also talk to a lot of people, they are using chat as their first port of call. From a business perspective, are there any other recommendations of tools that you found to be really effective?
There are, and they'll change. So two of the ones that we'll talk to businesses about are Gamma, which is gamma.app, which is amazing for presentations and unlocks a huge amount there. So you're able to present yourself in a better way and serve your clients better. The other one is Notebook LM, which is a Google tool and is basically your research assistant. So I don't want to overwhelm anyone with too much, but, and again, AI has the answers. So for any of these tools or any role that you're in, you can say, this is what I'm doing. Are there any tools out there that might be useful in my role? And can you tell me the pros and cons and make any recommendations based on what I do? So for example, if you're spending 5 minutes trying to intuitively find something on Gamma or Notebook LM, take a screenshot, chat will, or AI will tell you step by step how to navigate it. And so all of those little mini disruptions of what you do that take that little bit of time, you get that little bit of time back, and you're not having to become an expert in all the platforms, because you work with something that is an expert in all the platforms.
Have you found that leaders and business owners are open to AI within their business?
They are, and I'm seeing a really interesting shift, actually. So when we first started doing this, we didn't realize quite how far ahead of the curve we were, and we were kind of waiting for businesses to catch up. And so the smaller businesses are far more nimble and agile, so they found it a lot easier to jump on the AI bandwagon, which has allowed them to outcompete their larger ones. And the larger ones are coming on far more slowly. So we found that there was this excitement, like, we've got to do it, but there is that actually, but what's the downside? I'm really worried. And over time, I think businesses have realized that it's not going away, that we have this time now to lean in. But what I would say is that we're still in the early adopter phase. So ignore all the language that you hear of people, AI, AI, AI. It feels like everyone's doing it and everyone's doing it better than you. That is absolutely not true. We are still in the early adopter phase. So you'll hear a lot of things on the news about America is deep into AI and doing a lot in AI, and that is true. But they're talking about machine learning AI, which is business will pay a few $1 million or pounds for this bespoke solution that is in a black box that no one shall ever touch, and sits there and does things automatically. They're not talking about GenAI. So actually we're well ahead of the States. We work with large organizations out there that love us, and we have worked with them for years. We kind of thought that we'd say, hey, you loved us doing this thing, but now you'll love us more doing this thing. And I said, yeah, you're right, that's right. But that's on our roadmap for 2 to 3 years. And I was speaking to someone out there who's the chief people officer of a large organization. I think they're 1,000 headcount. And she was like, yeah, you're right, actually. We should be doing AI. Let me just see if we've got a policy on it. And she came back, she's like, actually, we do have a policy on it. And our policy is we're not allowed to use it.
Oh.
So it's really interesting. Financial organizations. I know one local leader for one of the states, in the States. And he sneakily uses chat at home. And he's the leader of a massive, because as a nationwide organization, they're not allowed to use it. So if you hear everyone's deep in AI and they're not. It's okay. You have time. Be curious, lean in.
Do you find that people have policies of not using because they've not really educated themselves in how to use it effectively?
100%. It's like we're unsure, so we're not doing it at all. But that is swinging now because we've got FOMO coming on, which is, if I'm not doing it, my competitors are. I now need to lean in and do something. And I think it's really important for people to realize that this is a culture change. We're going through change, transformation. And this is a desk by desk situation. And if you're bringing AI into an organization, you need to make it a safe space. You need to make it really clear what the expectations are. And you need to allow everyone to come along at their own speed. Because there'll be people that are skeptics, that are really concerned. And actually what we find is that skeptics generally flip over to be the internal champions. Once they're in, they're in. And they will spread that to others and share their experience. So you just need to make it a space that people can come along at their own speed.
In HR, we manage change quite a lot.
Yes.
So we will think around the change management process. And I think AI is exactly one of those items that we need to be popping onto our radar for a full change management. You're absolutely right. We can never predict how people are going to respond to change. We may have those who are super resistant, that as we then all shift towards being the early adopters. And that's also the reality for the future of work.
Yeah.
A lot of companies, just like what you said, are embracing AI. I'm noticing that particular industries are still quite resistant to it. But I'm seeing change. And change from some industries that I wouldn't expect at the same time.
Well, and you're exactly right, because I'm coming into the industry from the outside, so I've got a different perspective, I think. And interesting what you say, because we're ending up with a lot of professional services and financial organizations, which we didn't expect. And actually, one of the big things that businesses need to realize is that any of them that charge for time need to do a paradigm shift to charging for value. And they need to get ahead of that narrative now before clients come to them and go, well, if you used AI, surely that took half the time, so then that's going to affect the price.
So true.
So they need to navigate that. But I had an assumption, like initially I was like, well, we shouldn't go and talk to tech companies, even AI tech companies, because they'll be all over this. They're not at all. They're all over machine learning AI, which is what we know from Netflix and Amazon and things. They're not on GenAI. And actually a lot of them, they almost see, it sounds awful, sorry if you're a tech company, but they think that GenAI is a little bit dumb and kind of, I don't see how it will work in my role. And actually we have not yet had one role that AI doesn't augment. And that's the point. It's about augmentation, not abdication. It's about being human. So, like the plumber that will take a picture of a complicated job he's working on, and AI will help him sort the parts and come up with the quote. He's still doing plumbing, but he's not doing heavily the work that he doesn't want to do. So we've yet to come across a role in which AI won't assist. It is your 24/7 assistant. It's never sick. It's never grumpy. It's always nice to you. And that's where people really need to see it playing for them.
And that's also a really great example of how it actually allows people to work more strategically rather than the admin, transactional tasks that some people may love, others do not. And that allows us to actually more than likely do the job that we actually signed up to do. Do you find a really positive response or a negative response encounter from employees when you go in and support?
Initially, I think what is going on? They just want more from us. This is about being more productive. And then they really quickly realize that it's not about that. So interestingly, the first company we worked with ever, and I was like, this is amazing, because we work with organizations intentionally that are people first. And their main motivation was as responsible employers. They're like, people aren't going to stay with us forever. When they go on to the next role, it's our responsibility to make sure they're upskilled so that they can thrive. And that was one of their main reasons for doing it. Yes, they were struggling and they wanted to increase capacity, but it wasn't just about that. It was about helping their people do their best work. And I think that's really important. And if I was in HR, I'd be excited now. And that's what we hear from a lot of HR people, because actually they want to be human leaders. And a lot of them get caught in being policy experts and ops and all the stuff that they actually never signed up to do. So for HR, this can flip the script for them. This can put them in a position in which they are focusing on the people in the organization. That's what they're all about. They're all about helping and supporting people, and this puts them firmly in the driving seat for that.
That is so powerful to hear. As an HR professional at the same time, I'm just thinking, if I was relatively new to adopting AI, and I'm thinking, okay, this is incredibly progressive and it's changing day by day. Things could change from when we release this episode to when we've recorded it. Do you have any tips on how I can stay up to date with what's happening in the AI space?
Yes, there's a few things for that. Make sure you don't get overwhelmed, because you can go down a rabbit hole very easily. Find a trusted voice that's in your area or in the business area, and maybe one or two, and just kind of stay in touch and see what they're saying. And apart from that, I would actually say, but keep it light touch, because it will be overwhelming. So actually all you want to, even though the tools and things might change, all you want to do is learn the skill. And the other thing that you'll find happening as organizations become more AI enabled is that you'll end up with a community of practice. So you'll have the champions, and they'll be the ones that are going out and trying new things and coming back and going, hey, there's this great new tool here, can we experiment with it? And actually we're seeing that across the board. There'll generally be one person in a team, or you'll have them raise their hands as champions, and they will be out. They will lean fully in, and they'll bring all of that knowledge back into the organization. So find the external voices that you trust, but also look internally in your organization. And actually, you'll probably, if you haven't asked the question yet, if you start looking and talking to people, you'll find that they already exist. Every organization I've been into has an early adopter that's self-started, that will have played with things, that will be on Notion, that will be building little chatbots. They exist within your organization if you look for them.
Completely agree. And I'm thinking as well, there's so many ways that having an early adopter can be really beneficial to organizations, and especially to HR departments. At the very beginning, you said that typically HR have now become the lead of AI internally. Don't know how that's happened, but really I talked to a lot of HR professionals and it's just landed on our desk. which makes me think internally, potentially, there could be quite a lot of strategies that we could do, like maybe like a lunch and learn or workshops. Have you found any that have actually been really valuable, things like that?
Yeah, so you've been very kind to me, Georgia, because that's exactly what we do. So we'll usually go into organizations and do lunch and learns, and there's a number of reasons for that. And it's not always what you think. It's about actually the lunch and learns puts it clearly on the organization's radar, keeps it top of mind so they know. So usually when we do a lunch and learn, everyone comes because they're like, oh, we're doing this now. And they're excited and they've been waiting. But then it's about going through the organization, and depending on the size of the organization, it's a 12-month strategy really, because you want to keep it alive and keep it so that it's focused on the roles that they're doing. So what we want people to do is work on their work.
Yes.
This is not conceptual stuff. So anything that we do is, and actually, if you're looking for people to do workshops with you, ask them the questions. Are we producing work in the room? Are you covering, is it role specific? So because if they're training organizations on GenAI, they should be able to train at scale, but everyone is working on their own individual work. So it's role specific to them in the room. So it's the stage it will stand on is it must be practical. It has to be practical. It needs to be hands-on. So there's, as an organization, generally we'll go in and set them up with an AI roadmap. So we'll do strategic work with the C-suite and with the leadership in the organization, because we need to set the AI culture. Because I can tell you, if you are not setting your AI culture, it has been set for you and you won't like it. So you need to, from top to bottom, they all need to know the edges. What can we do? Where can we play? What don't we put in? Things like not putting in sensitive data and redacting. And another thing that's just important to know is that what you produce on AI falls within GDPR. So if you've got someone in your team that's annoying you and you're like, George is driving me crazy again and I can't believe she was late. She wasn't late. But then if something happens and they do a SARS request, that information falls under that. So they just need to know that this is a fun new tool, but actually this is where it fits within what we do, and this is where it fits within our policies, and that needs to be from top to bottom. And then it's really funny. We'll be in boardrooms, and they'll bring in, it's Chatham House rules, isn't it? Because they're like, we're meant to be leading this, and we don't know anything about it. And I'll commonly hear them say, we're dinosaurs. I'm like, you are not exempt. And actually with AI, the people that get the most out of it are people that are mid to late stage career, because you have the experience to guide it and you have the experience to interrogate the output. So, I don't give those people any opt-outs. They need to lead by example.
And when we don't start from the top as well, we're not going to end up baking that into our culture. And unfortunately, you're right, we will start to build a culture that we never wanted in the first place, which is not what any business owner wants.
No. So I will see frustrated business owners because they're like, but I've told them I want to do AI and nothing's happening. All right, okay, so we probably need to do a little bit more than just telling them that we're ready to do AI.
Just telling them isn't enough. Like we need so much more than that. And also I think one conversation and done is going to cause more damage, if anything. You made such a good point then around a SAR request, which I think a lot of people just assume that that's an email chain with a SAR request. It goes so much more than that. WhatsApp messages, instant messages, ChatGPT, what you're writing on there, all would be collated within a SAR request. But we need the education to our internal team so that, yes, they can use the tools effectively, but also as a business, we're going to put the parameters around that. And when you don't, it's going to cause issues.
Yes, absolutely. And you'll only know when it's too late as well.
Yes.
So you'll only know when that horrible thing lands on your desk. So, prepared is what I want everyone to be, is prepared. I don't want you to be worried about it. It's not a big thing. It's just something to be aware of, and that's how it fits in. You're producing any content that is identifiable and about someone, then that comes under that umbrella.
Completely agree. I've got one final question that I would like to round off with. Looking back on your career, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
You want about anything?
About anything.
Right.
So just looking back, younger Mary, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
So this is going to sound name droppy, and it's not meant to. So I was at Meta for a Women in AI event, and Alison Campbell was on stage there, and she's an amazing force in AI. And she was asked a similar question, and I would give a similar answer. She said, it's all about being visible and stand, because I'm a woman in AI now, which gives me a bit of an unfair advantage, actually, I think. So that visibility piece, and don't be afraid to speak up in a room. So my younger self would probably stand back and wait to be asked. And guys don't wait to be asked. I was at an event the other day, a women's event, and they said, why do we always say sorry? And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't even realize I did that. But we do. We apologize automatically.
Yeah.
And I realized that I wasn't asking, that I was worried about being visible. So to my younger self, I would say, please stop caring so much about what other people think. And it's okay to be visible, and it's okay to share your thoughts.
Absolutely love that. Such an important message. And I completely agree. I wish for myself, I am such a sorry person. Like, literally, I will open the door or do something and I'm like, oh, sorry. And they're like, why are you apologizing? But Mary, thank you so much for this conversation today. It's such an important one. And I know so many people will take such valuable advice from this. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Georgia. You've made it incredibly easy for me. Thank you so much for inviting me along.
Super kind. Thank you, Mary.